what's up, y'all? Welcome to the Jeff Kung Show. Today, I got my very good friend Jason Chu in the building. Everyone give him a round of applause. What's up, Jason?
What's up, y'all? Jeff, good to be here, man.
What's going on, man?
Let's go.
Got to run it back, you know, because, you and I have a deep history. And you've been on my radio show in China, but,
wow.
The first time, you were one of my first guests on the Jeff Kung Show.
That's right.
And a lot of people had their comments
about
you and I.
I love it.
I love to see
it.
Yeah. I love to see the back and forth. So today we're going to try a little something different. We're just going to talk about the topics du jour and then get your opinions about it. And yeah, we just kind of go from there.
Let's go.
So first of all, I got to say to you, Happy Chinese New Year's.
Hey, 恭喜发财.
恭喜发财. 恭喜发财. But I don't know if, I'm not sure, because you would know this better than me. Lunar New Year versus Chinese New Year. There's been a let's say discussion online because some people are getting offended when I say, hey, Happy Chinese New Year's. Have you seen that?
Man, okay, so I'll say this, right? My girlfriend's Vietnamese.
Okay.
I love her. And to me, honestly, who gives a fuck? Like, it's about who you're talking to. Exactly. Like, if I'm talking to you, yeah, it's Chinese New Year all day.
Right.
If I'm talking to a Vietnamese person, this is the problem, right? I think people are so hung up on doing the right thing versus understanding that the right thing comes out of who you're talking to.
Right.
So yeah, if I'm talking to a Vietnamese person, it's Happy Tet, Chúc Năm Mới, right? If it's you, it's Happy Chinese New Year.
Yeah.
Like, and I think the problem is we're so online these days that people forget it's about who you're talking to more than just putting out one thing. Here's the right way to say it, and no one can ever say it any other way.
Yeah, but my personal opinion is I feel like people online are just looking for something to get mad at. Like, or something to be offended about. Like, why are you so sensitive about such a innocuous topic to me? Yeah, okay, fine. If you're not Chinese, all right, fine. Happy Lunar New Year. But if I say, hey, Happy Chinese New Year, I'm Chinese, bro. Like, what's wrong with that? Because to be honest, okay, I understand the history, right? Okay, so Chinese New Year, because we had the Chinese diaspora and that's when it comes around. So we just start talking about it. And, I did a little deep diving into the history of it. So yeah, in Nanjing, they look at some mountain and that's how they determine each year's Chinese New Year. It's kind of based on the lunar and solar calendar at the same time. And there have been arguments, which is probably true, that because of Chinese imperialism, a lot of these type of traditions and dates were then passed on around Asia at large, right? But then they were able to take it back and do it on its own. And for example, in Vietnam, they can call it Tet or they can call it whatever they want to call it. But I feel like people are constantly offended when I say something. For example, I put a tweet out or I throw out some Chinese New Year post. Hey, Happy Chinese New Year. They say, hey, by the way, it's Lunar New Year. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, is it that big of a deal?
Yeah, so this is something that my activist mentors,
that's what I'm saying. You're an activist, so I'm surprised you would say that. Hey, it's all good. Just call it Chinese New Year's.
This is what my mentors have taught me. Yeah, is it's important to let folks know that they're included at the table. Right. It's most important to actually help people. Okay. Right? So this is the thing. Like, I'm not gonna walk up to a Vietnamese person and say Happy Chinese New Year. Yeah. Right? Like that's kind of throwing it in their face. Okay. But I think the most important thing is whatever you call it, like, are you helping out Asian communities? Yeah. Or are you just, because we see this now, right? Like every corporation, every company, they'll have like a little Lunar New Year party, or they'll have like, Disney has Lunar New Year in the parks all month. Yeah. But we don't actually know what they're doing to help the Vietnamese, Korean, Thai, Lao, Chinese, Taiwanese, whatever people.
It's pretty obvious they're just marketing. They're just trying to get us to go there. For example, they spend the most money in Las Vegas during Chinese New Year's on decorations.
I've been to Resort World.
More than Christmas, more than any other season. And the reason is because Chinese people during Chinese New Year's like to spend some money, or they like to feel like they have the luck to gamble a little more. That's what they send all their jets out. That's why in the Bellagio, you go in there right now. If you go in the Bellagio right now, looks like a Chinese mall. basically inside of there. So they're just basically marketing to us.
Facts.
You know, shout out to South Coast Plaza. They're a sponsor.
Hey, South Coast Plaza. But I bought Louis Vuitton at you, man. You're beautiful.
Come on, Irvine. It's a bunch of us there. But it's really just more of a, I don't want to call it exploitation, but let's just call it marketing. Let's call it is what it is, right?
Exactly. And great. If you want to culturally acknowledge Lunar New Year, that's wonderful. But in the end, I think if you're trying to make a difference, this is what I've learned is the language actually follows the work. Yeah. The language doesn't lead the work. Okay. Who cares if somebody changes what they're saying if they're not actually doing anything different?
That's a good point, because that's how, Christmas had a war on Christmas about 10 years ago, right? You can't say Merry Christmas. You got to say Happy Holidays. You got to say, because there's Hanukkah, there's Kwanzaa, there's all these different things. But at the end of the day, it's really just trying to appease people at the same time. Is it that big of a deal to call Christmas Christmas?
And this is the funny thing, right? Because I'm pretty Christian. Like I've got a master's degree in theology from a Christian seminary. Yeah. And dude, I do not give, and Christians aren't going to love this maybe, but I do not give a fuck about what you call it, right? Yeah. You say put Christ back in Christmas, but at the same time, how are you acting towards refugees? Exactly. How are you acting towards communities that are hurting? Yeah. That's where Jesus is at. Yeah. This is what all my theological mentors taught me, is Christ isn't what you say, it's how you live. Yeah. And I'd say the same thing for Lunar New Year. Like, dude, call it whatever you want, but do you care about Vietnamese people who are being exploited in working conditions? Do you care about, refugees, first generation refugees, people who are being deported? Right. Or do you just want to get it right? Yeah. Are you just trying to scrutinize?
Are you just trying to correct someone online and then have a little I don't want to call it virtue signaling, but it's parallel to that.
I think this is the thing, and this is the interesting thing. This is the thing about virtue signaling. People don't know what else they can do right now. People feel powerless, right? So they feel like, at least I can help somebody feel more accepted online. Right. But the reality is there's all kinds of ways you can get involved. Yeah. There's all kinds of ways that you can actually contribute to marginalized communities around you. Yeah. But we've been kind of propagandized into this idea by these tech oligarchs that all most of you can do is post and hashtag something and post a GoFundMe and hope it works. Right. When in reality, there's actually still activists out on the ground doing work, running food pantries, running mutual aid efforts. Yeah. We can do more than just correct people online. Yeah. But we're taught that that's all that most of us can do.
Well, it increases engagement and it boosts up their numbers.
That's right.
So why not use this as the forum versus doing some actual things on the ground? And if you do things on the ground, make sure you take 50,000 videos of it, hashtag this, that, and then make sure to post us. But that's interesting because we can now get into the next topic, because I think the pendulum has switched recently, because we were talking about how there was a war on Christmas, and I saw that on Fox News all the time. And I think that message got through to a lot of people because after the recent elections, it's very clear that pendulum has gone from the woke crowd all the way to the, I don't want to say anti-woke, but I'm sick of the woke. Yeah. The election. Because, even on X Shark, we saw that Asian Americans now voted more for Republicans in the past 3 or 4 elections. So I haven't had you in here since Trump won. And I'm just really interested on, I know how you feel about him, but really just about the whole analysis of the results of what happened. Like, what do you think?
I think people forgot what it's like to have Trump in office. Okay. I think there's a lot of people out there, like, look, if you're a fan of Donald Trump, shouts to you, but fuck him. And I know you can edit these things.
No. I'm not editing that out 1 second. All right.
like this dude, I do think literally thinks the American presidency is a dictatorship.
Okay.
You see this in his executive orders, many of which are unconstitutional. You see this in the way that he's essentially just commissioned Elon Musk to go out and do whatever he wants. Bro, this dude has touched the Department of Education. This dude has touched so many different... He has no elected position. He has no appointed position.
Right.
With that said, though, this last election was largely decided by a lack of turnout on the left, right? Yes, Donald Trump was voted for by more people than he was in the 2020 election.
Right.
That said, though, Kamala was voted for by much less of an electorate.
So like a weak candidate.
Yeah, and I think that some of that is the fact that realistically, the Democrats have not been pushing. They haven't been going hard.
Okay.
The Democratic Party, and I have some very good friends who are Democratic candidates who are in the party, and I'm proud of them.
Right.
But I think the Democratic Party as a whole, the problem was in this last election, instead of going hard and instead of standing up for what people on, I would say not only on the left, but even what people in the middle were looking for, they caved. They showed that they had little resolve on a national level.
Okay.
And so the issue is, I think, people forgot how chaotic it is to have Donald Trump in office. People forgot what it's like to wake up at 8 a.m. and 3 hours before there's a tweet that actually drastically changed national policy. We saw this last weekend when Trump, within 48 hours, right, he announced tariffs on Canada and Mexico, which are two of America's largest trading partners.
Yeah.
And then within 48, 72 hours, he rescinded them.
Right. But we're going to get into that. But don't you feel like this was Democrats' their own fault for making people forget how crazy Trump is? I feel like the Democrats with Biden, with Kamala, they had all power for the past 4 years. I really think they really dropped the bag because, first of all, during Biden's entire administration, I honestly didn't disagree with most of his policies, but optically, it looked like we had a geriatric running the country, number one. He couldn't really take any interviews. And I hate to say it, but a lot of times politics is really optical. What you see, what you hear, if he's taking interviews, how transparent he is. Trump, I don't agree with everything he says, but at least you know what he believes in. And he'll take any media interview, any type of, let's say, opportunity to communicate with people. At least you're clear about who this person is. And then on top of that, you saw people like Kamala during the election wouldn't go on any podcasts, wouldn't do anything that wasn't uber manicured. Yeah. It was always kind of very establishment, very, maybe inauthentic's the wrong word, but it was very curated, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, this is the fascinating thing, right? Because Donald Trump is just as old as Joe Biden.
Yeah.
But he comes from the world of media.
Okay.
Right? And we've seen this multiple times, right? Reagan in the 80s was the same thing. He was a movie star.
Yeah.
Till the Republicans ran him.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is, and frankly, the right, and I would say the alt-right, is running laps around us right now.
Yeah.
Us, not necessarily meaning, I don't want to necessarily...
No. I hear you, though.
And the thing is, I think that the Democratic Party wants it to be politics as usual. Right. I think that the Republican Party is realizing that victory comes through virality. It's 2025. Okay. You just having stable governance. I do not love all of Biden's policies, but I will say the country was fairly stable and was fairly established during his time. And the problem is they think that the Democratic Party is stuck in an old school mentality of we're gonna play the political game, we're gonna get the wins we do, but how can that compare to a Donald Trump tweeting or posting on True Social every 12 hours saying some wild shit? Yeah. And what we need is somebody who listens to the people who has these values that I share, but is actually willing to step out and say it with their chest.
Okay, but don't you think that's the issue with the Democratic Party right now? Like, I feel like they took the Asian vote for granted. They take the minority vote for granted. They do some virtual signaling about, all right, being more woke, or, you know, standing up for LGBTQ rights, or, you know, DEI, putting people in office.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like that's a bit of lip service to us, but really doesn't speak to, at least for us, Asian Americans, and what we care about. Safety, education, etc. Oh, okay, I'm going to have representation for you guys, but I'm not really going to talk about how I'm going to protect your Chinese restaurant from crime. I'm not going to increase the education levels of you guys in California and your children. I feel like they really took us for granted, and this was a big repudiation of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what it comes down to really is that the right now realize it's gloves off.
Okay.
It's mask off, right? Project 2025. Dude, they unveiled their talking points a year ago.
Yeah.
And they were talking points that galvanized a certain base.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the Democrats are funding the IDF.
Yeah.
Which, you know, however you feel about that, and I have very many Jewish friends who are split on a lot of issues around Israel and Palestine. But the Democrats are unwilling to go gloves off. They're unwilling to go mask off. They're unwilling to stand behind a lot of things that a progressive voter base is passionate about.
Right.
And I'm really thinking and hoping that this 4 years of a Trump presidency are going to, honestly, I think the only way this country survives as a bipartisan nation is if we have some people on the national and on the local, as we talked about, state, local, wherever stage, who are willing to actually say it with their chest.
Right.
Instead of playing the politics game, they're willing to step out and say, hey, this might be unpopular with some people, but this is what I believe in.
Right.
Because that's what we're seeing the right do right now.
Yeah.
We're seeing Trump do that. We're seeing Elon Musk do that. We're seeing them talk about, bro, not 12 hours after a tragedy in Washington, D.C., this dude is blaming DEI hires.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It sucks. And trust me, you know, I was educated. I was raised to be thorough and researched and careful. But now we work on social media.
Yeah.
And we understand that the way people process information right now is so rapid, and they need to hear that edge. Yeah. And I'm not hearing, I mean, this is why this last election, I didn't back any federal candidates, any national candidates.
We got a lot of heat for that, by the way.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, we were like, vote local. But I do understand why people are upset by it. Yeah. Right. But at the same time, you and I both really didn't back anyone nationally, because we really didn't hear a message that we could resonate with.
Exactly. Like, the thing is, you know as well as I do, that contemporary media is all about staying on the cusp of things. That's what Next Shark does. That's what you do. That's what I do with my content. Yeah. And the problem is, I think that we're seeing 4 to 10-year-old talking points being trotted out. Yeah. When Trump, and now he's got all the you know, Elon and all these other tech oligarchs are starting to kiss the ring. He's on top of the contemporary discourse. Yeah. He's speaking to what his voter base, to what his core audience is feeling now.
Well, so that's what I'm saying. He understands what we understand. The audience is here. The audience is online right now. But whereas I feel like the Democratic Party, they wouldn't go on a show like this. They wouldn't go on yours. They're thinking, I need to go on MSNBC. I need to go on ABC News. I need to be talking to Rachel Maddow. Those are the people who are influencing culture. But it's not the case anymore.
Bro, it hasn't.
They're out of touch.
Obama. And look, Obama won in a
was
landslide.
One of the most tech leading, candidates we've had in years. He revolutionized the entire White House with new tech.
It's been 12 years since we've had a Democratic candidate that has actually at least tried to speak to the people. Yeah. Right? Hillary ran on a legacy campaign. Biden ran on a legacy campaign. Yeah. And the reality is Trump is old, but he came up in entertainment.
Yeah.
Trump is just like Ye.
Yeah.
He's just like Tekashi 6ix9ine.
Yeah.
He understands that you're only as good as how viral you can go right now.
Well, he's a troll.
And the Dems have seemingly abdicated that battle. They've left the battlefield. They're not even trying to win that battle.
Exactly. So we need new blood in there, I feel like. And, I thought Andrew Yang was one of them.
Andrew Yang absolutely was one of them.
I really thought he was kind of going to be the leader of the new blood. But I don't know, man. He kind of capitulated a little bit.
He got iced out. He stepped back. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then we got Eric Adams, who's now under investigation for felony.
So, let's see what happens, right? All right. So, speaking of Trump and, basically now he won.
He won.
He won fair and square. Fair and
Yeah.
square. And now he feels like he has this mandate, right? So we need to start talking about a lot of things, a lot of executive orders and stuff that he's been doing that affects people like you and me.
That's right.
So, one of the first things he ran on was immigration and deportation, right? And one of the first things he did was wanting to, let's say, challenge the birthright. And to be perfectly honest with you, I wouldn't be an American citizen if that law wasn't in place.
Same. Yeah.
You and I could potentially not be deported now, but if we were born this year, we potentially could not be an American citizen.
And I'll be real, they'd be happy to deport us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you seen what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so there's two topics to talk about. First of all, I know that we're actually one of the only countries in the world to have birthright in the U.S. And I know that you've done some videos about that on your channel.
That's right.
About this. So first are your views about birthright? And is this something why is this unique to the U.S. and why should this be continued here?
There's two stories about America.
Yeah.
There's this story of America that says, you're tired, you're poor, you're huddled masses.
Yeah.
Come and this will be a home for you. It's written on a statue on Ellis Island.
Yeah, exactly. Statue of Liberty.
Right? And then there's another story of America that is, this is about white excellence.
Okay.
This country is about people from Europe who came and conquered it, who took it over, who made it what it is. And I really think birthright citizenship is so tied to the battle between those two stories.
Okay.
Because there's one story that says America is a nation of immigrants, of people who came. And let's be real, those people who came, those English people who came on boats from a Dutch harbor, they did not immigrate legally. There was nothing in this country that welcomed them, that asked them to be here. They said, hey, we're going to come and we're going to look for opportunities because what's going on for us at home is not good. And if that's, the America you want, cool. Keep out people who don't look like you.
Yeah.
But this other story of America, right, that says America is built on people who came here and worked hard and contributed.
Yeah.
And, whether they were allowed in, whether they were forced in, like many Chinese were.
Yeah.
In the 1800s, a lot of Chinese came over. And Chinese were not legal immigrants. Let's get that out of the way right now.
Right.
Chinese were illegal immigrants. If you're Chinese and you came and you stayed in the country in the 1800s, you were not, you didn't do it the right way. No, you came, you were supposed to work on the railroads, work in the mines, and get out.
Right, yes. That's true.
But they stayed. And in fact, in the 1890s, the Geary Act was passed, which said actually that all Chinese had to register and carry ID. And you know what the Chinese did? 85% of them said, hell no, we're not going to do it. They called it the dog tag law. They said, we are people. We're not going to walk around in our communities, in our neighborhoods, forced to carry ID, forced to prove we belong here. 85% of Chinese, there were about 110,000 Chinese in the country at the time. 85% of them said, we're not going to do that. And you know what the U.S. did? They couldn't deport them because it was too expensive.
So it was a money thing.
It was a money thing. The Congress passed laws saying any Oriental, any Chinaman in this country had to prove they were here legally or leave.
Right.
And the Chinese, thanks to the 6 companies in San Francisco, thanks to the Chinese American League in New York, en masse, they said, this is dehumanizing, this is degrading, this isn't okay. We're just not going to do this. And the funny thing is, Congress, when they authorized the Geary Act, they didn't authorize enough money to deport 90,000 Chinese people.
Right.
And so the Chinese stayed.
Right. Okay.
Right. So what I'm saying is, if you're Chinese American, your ancestors, whether you're related to them by blood or not, they were the ones running these deportation protests. They were the ones saying, hey, we're here, we're working, we're helping the economy. Whether or not the Congress says, yeah, you can stay, we have built our lives here, we contribute here, we're going to stay.
But it feels like the changing of the birthright laws right now is because originally these laws were designed for Europeans.
That's right.
White people.
That's right.
But now that it's being, I don't want to say exploited, used by Asians and Latinos and whoever that arrive here. Okay, wait, this is now that it's gone too far. And we have to now repeal these laws. I mean, there is an example of, I think it was a Korean guy. His name is Crasper. He was, do you know that story?
The adoptees.
So Crasper, I think he wasn't born here. He was adopted.
Yeah.
But he became an American citizen.
That's right.
Quote unquote. But then he actually wasn't an American citizen because they didn't do the paperwork properly. But his children were able to stay here because they were here by birthright.
Meanwhile, he got deported to
he got
Korea.
deported.
Yeah.
You know, that I mean, those type of situations to me are quite shocking, but depending on who's in office at the time, these laws will be interpreted or flexed on differently.
This is what's fascinating to me, is that people think compliance with the law is easy.
Yeah.
That tells me you've never had a court case.
Right.
That tells me you've never had an issue with immigration. That tells me you've never been caught at the border and whether you're a citizen or not, asked to prove your citizenship, prove your birth. So there's 2 things people need to know. There's de jure and de facto.
Okay, yeah.
So de jure means by the letter of the law. De facto means how that law is actually enforced.
Okay.
And ideally, right, the story of America is everyone's equal under the law.
Yeah.
De facto, though, we know it's a different story, right? So, for example, immigration.
Right.
In Arizona, they're going to stop a Hispanic-looking person way more than they will someone with the same last name who looks white.
Right.
De facto, right? They're going to black drivers get pulled over way more than drivers of other races.
Right.
And this is the fascinating thing, is that America is not just a nation of laws, it's a society of expectations. And when we look at the ways that things actually play out, that's where we need government regulation. That's where we need anti-discriminatory laws, right? There's a Harvard Business School study from about 10 years ago that people with Chinese-looking or Asian-looking or Black-looking names get second-round interviews way more than the identical resume. They did this study. They sent out the same resume, just with different names on it. Asian and Black-looking names got way more second-round interview, or way fewer second-round interviews than the identical resume with a white-looking name.
When was this, though?
This was about 10 years ago.
10 years ago. Do you think that would uphold today?
I think it would be more so today.
Really?
Yeah.
But it depends on the field, right? Like if you're an engineer, like on Facebook, looking for engineers, and you see a Chinese name on it, or an Indian name on it, or a Korean name on it, I feel like you might get maybe some more looks.
So this is interesting because now, I know we'll talk about H-1B visas.
Yes.
But I think the point is, right, bro, your and my careers are in fields where our names don't necessarily make us better hires.
True.
Right? If somebody's looking to hire a rapper for whatever performance, unless it's a Lunar New Year performance.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily getting a look.
Right.
And I think that that's, again, there's two stories about America.
Yeah.
One story about America says, hey, you come, you work hard, you contribute, and you become part of the society.
Right.
The other story says this society was built for and by certain people, and everybody else can help maybe, but in the end, it's not for you.
Okay. So I feel like this gets into the next topic more about just immigration policy at large, right? Because I lived in China, you lived in China.
Yeah.
And I was there during a movement where they deported all of the backpacking, beer drinking, foreigners who offered nothing to contribute to society.
Facts.
Whereas, in the US, like you said, there's Birthright. As we all know, there's Birthright. You just come here and it doesn't matter how you get here. If you have a child, you get to, they become a U.S. citizen. And then essentially the mother or the father can essentially have a path to get their green card, essentially. And I do feel like there has been abuse of this system. And that's kind of has resonated with a lot of immigrants who have come in the legal way. So that's why you see a lot of Latinos, a lot of Asians that have gone right. They have gone the Republican route of saying, wait. No, I worked my butt off to get here and do it in a legal manner. Why am I going to now share my taxes with a bunch of people who have come here illegally and kind of trying to abuse the system? And I think there is abuse of the system. So,
For sure.
But how do you reconcile that then?
Yeah, look, so one thing, for starters, is that a lot of undocumented immigrants actually pay taxes.
Yeah.
Because they want citizenship.
Yeah.
They want to be able to show up to their ICE hearing, to their immigration hearing, USCIS, and say, look, ever since I came in this country, I've done everything to contribute.
Right.
And a lot of people don't know this because this information isn't available, popularly. But actually, a lot of the people who come in, not only do they contribute in an economic and in a labor fashion, but they're actually paying taxes. Yeah. They're paying into the system because their hope is to stay.
Right.
Their hope is to prove that they want to be American. So I think this is the problem, is that we've been very successfully propagandized about what is and isn't a contributing American. And we've been taught, and you see this in a lot of this conversation around these executive orders. You see, these executive orders around birthright citizenship, which I absolutely, and this may not win me popularity, but I absolutely agree, actually. If you just came here to have a kid, and then you and the kid fly back, and then in 18 years, you apply for them as a UC local student because you kept a PO box in California.
That's abuse.
That is abuse of the system. But this is what I've been saying to my friends. The answer isn't stripping away the system. The answer is refining the system.
Okay.
Right?
I can agree with that.
Yeah, because the thing is, America has a choice to talk about, really to define what country we want to be.
Yeah.
Are we the country that welcomes people who want to take a real shot at contributing to a community and a society?
Yeah.
Or are we scared? Are we a scared country that says everyone's out to get us? We have everything and everyone else has nothing and they're all trying to mug us. And frankly, to me, that doesn't sound like a confident country. That doesn't sound like a country that is, if America is a world leader, is confident about what it provides, this should not be something that's a conversation even. We should be saying, people will come, they'll find their place in this society. And then if it's not working for them, it's clearly not going to work for them. But instead, a lot of the narrative that I hear is frankly one of fear.
Yeah.
It's one that casts this country as, hey, if we don't do something, people are going to take advantage of us.
Okay.
And that's not the kind of narrative that a country confident in its future, a country confident in its economy, a country confident in its production advances locally or globally.
Okay, that's interesting because I think confidence comes from strong leadership. And strong leadership also begets a good plan, right? So I actually have, like you said, maybe I get a lot of flack for this plan, but I feel like there should be a immigrant/refugee program, but it's a work program. So right now you could, you know, EB-5 visas are, right?
Yeah.
You put $1 million into some business, you create some jobs, and then you get a green card for your family, right? So basically, essentially, it's the rich people from around the world, welcome to the US, create some jobs, and we'll give you a green card, right? I get that, right? Because you want people with money, you want people who are tax paying, who can create jobs, who can increase the asset base of the US and bring them in, right? Okay, fine. Let's just say that's okay. Rich people get it. But for the poor people who want to come to the US, what's the issue right now with the US? They can't compete with Mexico, India, and China on cheap labor, right? But cheap labor is coming in anyways from, we said, a variety of countries. Immigrants coming in. They're picking our strawberries, they're working factories, and they're paying taxes.
That's right.
Now, if we already have this labor base in the US, and we have a labor base that wants to come to the US, couldn't we then just put them on a work visa program where, okay, they're going to help the US build their manufacturing base. They're going to be the ones working in a lot of these factories and a lot of these agricultural jobs. And if they contribute to society for the next, let's say 5 years or, 6 years, 7 years, whatever it is, then we give them full green card, PR status, permanent resident status, essentially on the path to citizenship because they contributed to society. They contributed to the growth of the US and also created a competitive advantage when it comes to manufacturing versus countries abroad. Like, wouldn't that be an option where, okay, you come in, you contribute, and you get what you earned, essentially?
Yeah, I'm not a policy guy. I can't say yes or no.
Yeah.
What comes to my mind, though, is that this plan that you're suggesting is too reasonable.
Okay. Do you think it's exploitive or do you think it's too, what do you mean by too reasonable?
I think it makes too much sense. And I think that the reality is the administration in power right now got into power not because they could fix things, but because they could harness antipathy.
Okay. Right.
They could harness a sense of dispossession, right? I just saw this tweet, this X.
Yeah.
I saw somebody saying, dude, all of these agricultural workers in California's Central Valley, they're not showing up because they know that ICE is raiding the fruit fields.
Yeah.
Who's going to take those jobs? So this is what I'm thinking, right? The current administration ran on this notion of they're taking our jobs.
Yeah.
Okay, some of those jobs are opening up now.
Right.
Who's going to take them?
Right.
Who wants to work in the fruit fields for what, $10 to $12 an hour? Backbreaking labor, sweating all day.
Right.
You got to move to Bakersfield, or you got to move to Fresno, or you got to move to the Central Valley.
Right.
Is your average American going to say, great, there's room in the economy for me now? Or are they going to say, hey, I was really comfortable before letting somebody else do that for $8 an hour, letting someone else do that without job security.
Right.
And I think the reality is the message a lot of Americans who voted certain ways in this last election, what they got sold on isn't actually the reality that they're going to be willing to inhabit.
That's an interesting topic because we talked about the H-1B visa and then we're talking about the ICE deportations of agricultural workers, right? These are two opposite sides of the spectrum.
That's right.
We have the super low wage, the jobs that no one wants to do.
And then $120,000 a year.
And then the H-1B visas, because Vivek said this, Elon said this, there's not enough smart engineers here to fill those roles. So if, as you're saying, there's not enough local Americans who want to do the low-paying jobs, and then the Elon Musks of the world saying there's not enough educated Americans to fill in these high-paying jobs. So we need imports. We need immigrants to come in here. Then what is the role of the local American then? They can't do, they're unwilling to do the shit jobs, but they're unqualified to do the high-paying jobs. Isn't that just a testament of the system not actually creating, one, hard workers, or B, actually well-educated people in those STEM fields?
Yeah, about 7 years ago, I was talking to an admissions counselor.
Yeah.
And she said, I think public schooling is consciously not educating people in STEM. So a little bit of background.
Okay.
I went to a STEM high school.
Right.
When I started out in an Ivy League college,
Yeah.
I was a biochemistry major. I know what it takes to be a top tier researcher and developer in those fields. American public schools don't teach people that. And this is what I've been saying recently to friends is I'd love to be proven wrong, but I don't think I'd love to be proven wrong, but America's public education is the core problem here.
Yeah.
You go to China, you go to India, you go in a lot of countries around the world.
Right.
They're actually educating people to build a manufacturing base that will be forward thinking. Dude, a ton of American students don't learn calculus in college, much less high school.
Yeah.
I did calculus AB, BC, 3, and then I did like an intro math class in college. A lot of students in America aren't ready to take up the mantle for engineering. Dude, there's a reason. You look at the USA Biology Olympiad team. You look at the USA Math Olympiad team. All of these national representatives sent to these global competitions, they're Chinese and Indian American kids.
Correct, yeah.
And I think the issue is America's public schooling is set up in a way to produce docile workers, not to produce innovators. And, you know, this goes into the deep seat conversation because America, we love to tout our innovation and our creativity.
Right.
We don't understand how sharp kids on the national stage are.
Getting into that. So like there's been a huge, tech war recently between the China and the US. And this has been happening for quite a long time, right? So it started with the TikTok ban, so we should talk about that first. You know what I mean? So the TikTok ban and everyone going to Red Note and going to a Chinese platform, basically because, I call it protectionism, which is fine, but no one actually wants to admit that, especially in the government. No one wants to say, we want to go ban TikTok because it's to protect, US tech companies. Essentially, they wanted to say it was China's data mining, or they
like Meta isn't, like Google isn't,
exactly. Or they were trying to poison our children with this smut content, etc. It's like you said, like Meta's not doing the same damn thing. It's like you want to be protectionist, just be outright and just say it. First of all, and by the way, I called this. By the way, I knew it was bullshit. I knew they weren't really going to ban TikTok. I think they were going to ban TikTok.
No way.
But it's interesting because, Trump made it an egotistical thing where it's like, okay, when TikTok was banned and then it came back on, it said, thank you to our supreme leader, Donald Trump, for bringing TikTok back and brokering this deal.
Which is so funny because remember, he was the first person back during his administration that raised the issue of, maybe we should ban this.
Yes, correct.
Because the TikTokers, the Gen Z kids, were what's the word? They were talking down on him.
Yes, correct. But then he became popular on the platform.
Yeah.
And then he was like, we need to bring this back. And, he's a genius when it comes to public opinion.
Yeah.
So he knew that 70% of the people in the US are like, we shouldn't ban this thing. So, he switched sides quite easily. Now, the interesting thing about this whole TikTok thing is that the reason a lot of these TikTokers were so upset at the government was a freedom of speech argument. This is where we have the freedom of speech to you saw a lot of Palestine videos, you saw a lot of counterculture videos.
Yeah.
And it was where people could learn a lot about maybe non-mainstream media narratives. And they thought they can find that more on TikTok than they could on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, because YouTube and Meta, as we know from the Elon Musk, that they were largely controlled by the US government. And they had a lot of their censorship rules or influence in there. Now, the irony is a Chinese platform, right? A Chinese-owned platform started a social media platform in the US that actually was 100% free speech. And the US government was afraid that speech was too free on this platform. And then what happened? These people on TikTok decided, all right, F you, US government, of your control. Let's go to another Chinese platform that's even more restrictive, that's based on Mandarin language. That's not even, that like I feel has like very few servers in the US even. And let's go there because the Chinese government is offering us a more free platform than the US. And that was a complete mindfuck to me.
I saw the internet literally break. People were saying, wow, we can talk to Chinese people. And they're not censored. Like they can tell us how life is there. Which you and I had as Chinese American guys living in Beijing.
It was super refreshing.
It really was.
Right? To see that. It's like, okay, you can open your eyes to what China's actually like. You know, and I said this early in a video. I said, you know, there's a lot of reasons why you guys like Red Note. Because first of all, everyone's verified. Right. So no one can mask behind anonymity, right? Some like shadow accounts to talk your shit. Right. Number two, these Chinese people know way more about you than you know about them. And finally, there's the appetite for the Western cultures to try to have a deeper understanding of Chinese culture that they haven't been getting on CNN. And these people speak English. They understand about politics. They watch your movies. They listen to your music. And finally, you guys are doing, I don't want to say completely reciprocal, but there's an interest there for that. So you're going to see people are very welcoming to you there. And I found that completely ironic, refreshing, and just like a positive type of cultural exchange between the two.
This might be the poll quote for this clip.
Okay.
Red Note is the high point of social media.
Okay.
Because you have, frankly, China censors social media. America censors social media. But you had this one moment where two kinds of censorship had two audiences intersecting in a way where they were actually learning about each other. Right? Because Xiaohongshu, Red Note, does not have US users.
Zero.
And TikTok was created so that Douyin would have isolated Chinese and US user bases. But then you had this really interesting confluence of American social media users flocking to a Chinese platform because it had the algorithm they're looking for. And then, of course, they reestablished TikTok. Now everyone's back on the native platform. But for a moment, like one weekend, you had Chinese people and American people. It was like a scene in a movie where they're tapping on the prison wall.
Exactly. It was one of those things where like the Matrix, where like the portal little opens and you can see the reality of it. You're like, whoa, that's actually what it looks like on the other side. It was like, and it was only for that 2-3 weeks.
It was like the experience you and I had living as Chinese American guys in Beijing. Where we were like, oh shit, like we get to see how you live. And you're people like us. You don't love your government. You're figuring out your life. You know, society has constraints on you, but you're finding your way. And for the first time in a long time, Chinese people, average Chinese people and average Americans got to talk to each other. And then TikTok came back and now everyone's back.
And everyone's back. Like I said, like this was short-lived, but I absolutely loved it. Because first of all, it was too fast that any government could respond quick enough, right? So the Chinese government couldn't say, oh, wait a minute. We don't want all these people knowing what's going on in America. And oh, wait a minute. The US government could say, wait a minute. I don't want you guys knowing the truth about China. And it was like that, like you know, that 2-3 week latency that happens. And that there was like this opening of this portal where both sides could see, oh, wait a minute, my government's full of it. Mm-hmm. My government is really not telling me what's going on the other side. And whereas people can actually have this cross-cultural discussion that kind of open people's eyes.
Yeah.
And I don't think that will happen again, really, in history.
Yeah.
But that was a eye-opening moment for me, and yeah, super refreshing just to see, you know?
Some activists talk about this.
Yeah.
That it's actually not about cultural struggle, it's about class struggle.
Yeah.
And what Red Note,
they call it Red Note here. We call it Red Book. Call it Red Book.
Right. What Xiaohongshu gave us was an opportunity for working class, everyday people on both sides to say, oh, you're just people like us.
Yeah.
Right? Chinese people aren't these weird communist indoctrinated people.
Yeah.
Americans aren't these weird imperialist, colonial people. Everyone's just trying to get by, and they kind of dislike what's going on, and they don't know how to change it.
Which kind of brings me to my next topic about the entire DeepSeek scare and how, the Chinese tech versus US tech debate that's happening right now. Mm-hmm. Now, if everyone doesn't know, so DeepSeek basically is a OpenAI competitor that was able to do something similar to what OpenAI right now, ChatGPT 4 was able to do, but with a much more efficient algorithm, and we're able to do it for $6 million. Now, I'm not sure if that's completely true.
Who knows?
Right? But I'm not sure if that's completely true, but it's been verified by a lot of tech experts around the world that they definitely did something that was groundbreaking, that was much more efficient, and were able to curtail a lot of the chip bans from the US towards China, right? Have you used DeepSeek?
I haven't actually. I use DeepL, I use ChatGPT. I haven't used DeepSeek yet.
So I've used it, and I knew this about a month ago when they were, I think it was their previous version, what they did recently.
Yeah.
And it was before R1. And it was really good, but there were certain answers that it would put out that thought it was ChatGPT, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Right? So it kind of goes into a lot of discussions about Chinese tech at large as it being largely, like, let's say, it copies or it steals a lot of technology from the US, which it does. But, China's really good at that, right?
Yeah.
But what I feel like this, so there's a couple things that I feel like this DeepSeek phenomenon has kind of shed a light to. DeepSeek is open source.
Yeah.
ChatGPT from OpenAI was originally supposed to be an open source AI company, but they found the dollars, or they saw the economics behind it, and they decided to close those doors.
That's right.
And then become a private company or a closed company and not share their tech with the technological community.
Yeah.
Whereas China said, you know what? Let's just open it up. Right? Let's create a more efficient algorithm or a more efficient AI, and let's just make it open source. So number one, we could be completely transparent. And if there's any type of Chinese influence, CCP influence, any type of bias, you can actually take that open source, recreate your own, and get rid of all that bias.
Yeah.
But we're going to go be the disruptor.
Look at operating systems and personal computing.
Yeah.
Bill Gates saw an early Apple demo.
Yeah.
And that was the root of the Windows operating system.
Windows, yeah.
Right? It was Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak.
Yeah.
And then Microsoft saw the graphical user interface.
Yeah.
And said, this is a great idea. No more command line. We're going to go with this.
Yeah.
America as an economy has claimed to be proud of free market competition. And now when we see Chinese engineers start to outcompete American companies, now all of a sudden it's protectionism. Now all of a sudden it's, copying. Dude, American enterprise is based on copying and innovation. This is what we grew up with, hearing in public school. The American economy is about innovations that get released to the market and built on. Right? McDonald's. Ray Kroc saw what was going on and took the McDonald's model of fast food, franchised it, built it, actually drove the original McDonald's out of competition. And it's become an American icon the world around. It is... again, I go back to there's two stories about America. One is we are this beautiful land where anybody can take an idea, innovate on it, create something new, build something that creates jobs and adds value to society. The other is we're scared. We're scared that people elsewhere will do a better job with our stuff than we're doing. And I think that's not an America that I was taught. And that's not an America I want to be a part of. But all of a sudden, I'm hearing a lot of language around, oh, we don't want people to steal our stuff. Dude, the flip side of the coin of stealing is innovation, is free market. The idea of the free market is built, sure, not on stealing ideas, we'll give credit, but we'll build atop of the foundation that's laid down by entrepreneurs.
That's complete yes, you're right. But the idea of, we shouldn't steal technology is complete bullshit. Because, right, there was Friendster, then there was MySpace.
That's right.
And then there was Facebook. And then there was Instagram. Okay? These are all borrowed technologies, right? Oh, I saw they're doing that. Okay, I'm going to do a better version of that. Okay, I'm going to do a better version of that. I don't know if that's fucking copying. Okay? And then, but it's innovation on top of copying. And that's essentially what's happening here, but you have a bigger competitor in China who's more hardworking, who's faster, and who's more adaptable. Now, what's interesting is because I watched a All-In podcast, shout out to y'all.
Hey.
So the Uber CEO was on that. And his opinion was really interesting because when he started Uber in China, they would spend so many hours, days, weeks, months innovating some type of new product. But he respected the Chinese tech companies because they were able to copy that new feature or new product within weeks. And do it completely as efficient and sometimes more efficient. And what he was saying was that a lot of these companies in China, they're uber good. They're really good at copying. But once that latency got shorter and shorter, let's say you should take, DD 6 months to copy an Uber feature. But once that got to 1 month, or once it got to 3 weeks to 2 weeks, all that copying turned into innovation. They were able to then innovate faster than Uber was. So it flipped the script, and which is essentially what's happening it's already happened with EVs, right? Like
BYD is going crazy. Tesla, if y'all are in America and you're driving a Tesla and you think this is like the top of the line.
Not even close.
BYD in China.
Not even close.
Transformers.
Yes.
They look like Transformers.
And it happened with cell phones, right? So,
Huawei.
And what happened with Huawei, I think Apple is now the number 4. It used to be the number 1.
It's crazy because when we were living there, you remember Zhongguancun, and everywhere, the lines for Apple were crazy in China.
Now no one's lining up for that.
No.
In fact, like I said, it's the number 4 smartphone manufacturer in China. Same thing with cars, right? So the EV they copied first. You would look at a lot of BYD cars, and it looked like a Tesla. It looked like a Toyota. It looked like all these other cars.
And now?
But now they've now surpassed.
Bro.
Their innovation is second to none. And in fact, before even Trump was in office, before the tariffs came in place, Biden put the tariffs first, saying, okay, no, we can't have these BYD cars flood the market here because Chinese are more innovative than even the Japanese were in the 80s, right? So it's completely changed the landscape where it comes to even AI right now. So DeepSeek, I have no doubt that they will surpass a lot of the innovations here. Now, it's interesting because this is remember Bruce Lee said, be water. Right? And I think Chinese people really took that to heart, because even with all of these trade or tariffs or this banning of chips sent to China, they were able to be water and go around a lot of those blockades. Yeah. Right. Now, of course, people can say, yeah, they got a lot of chips from the Singaporeans. They diverted a lot of these rules and laws, but that's kind of just how things are. Like kind of this Murphy's laws type of thing. Things will happen. You cannot stifle innovation.
Yeah.
You know, it for sure will happen. But I think that people are not actually recognizing that it's not just copying in China or in Asia right now. It's the adaptability of the people there to embrace new technology faster than the West.
Yeah, I grew up in STEM. My dad's a chemist. I got into college. I got into an Ivy League college on a research scholarship. 95% of Americans, 99% of Americans do not understand how scientific innovation occurs. It's not one person in a lab coming up with a world-changing idea.
Yeah.
It is a community of people building on each other's ideas and incorporating that into consumer developments.
Yeah.
And the problem is America is so individualistic. Everything's so locked away behind individual corporate-owned patents that we're not going to see the same kind of innovation that occurs when technological process and scientific breakthroughs are shared throughout a society.
Right.
And I see a lot of languaging and I see a lot of messaging in America around, oh, we need to, buy local, buy native, America first.
Right.
Consider that American society is not set up in a way to foster the scientific method.
Yeah.
Right? Hypothesis, research, revision.
Yeah.
And iterate.
Right.
American society is so locked behind corporate landlords that, yes, people have a thesis, they'll do research, and then the results of that research are proprietary.
Okay. That's interesting because I feel like a lot of the copyright laws, patent laws here has stifled innovation. Whereas in China, the stigma is that Chinese people copy, right? They copy from the West, they copy, from whoever, and they just steal the riches, right? That what people aren't actually recognizing is that Chinese companies also copy from each other.
Yeah.
And they copy from each other and are able to innovate beyond that. So when things are just completely open source, they're still able actually to create an economy and make money off of it by outcompeting. And I say this a lot because if you look at Chinese mobile apps versus US mobile apps, the Chinese mobile apps are far more sophisticated because they were able to copy from each other and essentially create a homogeneous online system. So if you open Bank of China app and then you open Alibaba,
it'll integrate.
It looks
with
the
each
same.
other. Yeah.
Like they've created this universal UI that if you open the Taobao app, if you open any app, you can navigate all of them. You have the menu bar on the left. You have basically different sections. I'll put a pop-up on the screen so everyone can see. It looks almost the same. It looks very complicated, but everyone can understand where each thing lies because they were able to actually innovate off of each other. And then that doesn't happen here. If you open the Amazon app, this thing looks like it was made in 30 years ago and with no innovation at all.
And it's not going to plug into PayPal.
Yeah.
It's not going to plug into eBay.
Yeah.
It's not going to plug into all of the Venmo.
Correct.
All these different things that you use because this so-called free market has actually led to a siloing of corporate masters instead of a collaboration between them.
Right. So this whole DeepSeek AI thing is actually just taking a page from what's happening in Chinese tech and actually, all right, let's just throw this out into the market in the US, in the Western world, and let's see what innovation can happen beyond that, making it open source, And another thing that's interesting to me is that people don't understand that a lot of developing countries, not just China, right? A lot of developing countries, they are much more acceptable to and adaptable to changes in tech, right?
Yeah.
That's why you see QR codes in China. For the past 10 years, that's how everyone pays for things. Literally, you see even street performers, they don't take cash. They have a QR code set up so you can give them money. But here, it probably took them 8 years or 9 years after the fact to start using QR codes because of COVID, basically.
Here's, I'm Chinese American.
Yeah.
I'm American, and here's my question to other Americans.
Yeah.
Do you think the country is protecting you or companies? Do you think that the segmentation we see is because it's good for you or because it's good for Amazon or Google or Meta or Venmo or PayPal? Because the thing is, just travel outside this country. I was just in France for a show this last winter. Everything's integrated. You go anywhere outside of this country and the government, frankly, regulates in a way that forces companies to work together to make sure that the consumer has a good experience.
Right.
So whether they have a Discover card or a Visa card or whatever card, whether their account is on PayPal or Venmo or whatever, it's all integrated. And in America, I'm very happy to be American, but in America, it seems like the government is protecting individual companies more than it is the end user.
Right. So I feel like it's ironic that, we know in hip hop, when you borrow ideas,
sampling.
When you sample ideas, you're able to create something completely new. And with that new art form, you're able to create an entire new economy, essentially around it. And that's, I feel like, what a lot of Eastern cultures are embracing, whereas a lot of Western cultures are fearful of. And now that we live in a global economy, and now that tech is able to cross borders, you're kind of seeing the result of that vis-a-vis TikTok, vis-a-vis Temu, vis-a-vis Shein, vis-a-vis Red Note, all of these different, and now DeepSeek. Right. So you're seeing the result of the I don't want to say openness of copying, but the results of open source, essentially. Of what that can garner. And they're proving that you can actually create a business model based on the borrowing or the innovation of existing tech.
And, Jeff, I think you and I have a really special place as Chinese American kids who grew up in hip hop. As Chinese American kids who grew up in hip hop, we understood, we're proud to be American, but we understood what it means to belong to a community. And I think that America is so locked into individualism. And hip hop for me was the way out of that individualism. It was the way to belong to something bigger. And sampling in hip hop is what DeepSeek is doing.
That's what I'm saying.
Right? They understood that, look, we're going to, hopefully we're going to credit the sources. We're going to give props to the engineers who built it, but we're also going to build something on top of it. So whether that's Beastie Boys with Paul's Boutique, whether that's Kendrick Lamar with, his new GNX record, we're going to give props to the ones who came before, and we're going to build on top of it. And I think that America is so caught in this fear mentality of you can't reference or build on top of my stuff because I need to monetize it. Instead of trusting that when somebody builds something on top of this, that means a new job for me. That means royalties for me. And I think that, honestly, I think hip hop points the way to how this should work. Tell people this is where you got it from. Tell people, hey, this musician or these engineers, they're the ones who originated this algorithm. They should get jobs. But here's the next level of that. And I think American society is unready to do that because of how corporately protective it is. It protects corporations over individual engineers, coders, musicians. And so, when Kendrick Lamar samples an incredible record and makes a new hit off of it, who makes the money? Right. Yeah, some of it goes to the original artist. A lot of it goes to the company. And that's the thing. We got to ask, which story of America do we want to be told? Do we want to be told a story where people take things and use things from previous generations and it flows to them? Or do we want to tell a story where private venture capital takes it all and they're the ones who own our collective cultural assets?
Well, it's funny because it kind of wraps up the entire podcast, because at the beginning we were talking about certain laws that were put in place before there was a new paradigm.
That's right.
And I feel like that new paradigm is happening now. It pertains to immigration and it pertains to tech.
Yeah.
Things have to be, our mindset needs to be changed. If we're thinking that these laws are going to protect us from our IP, et cetera, we'll build companies like Facebook and these that have happened in the past 20 years. That's not going to happen in the next 20 years.
Yeah.
In the next 30 years, because it's a new age where there is a new competitor on the horizon that is basically playing the same rules as us, but just now out competing and out innovating.
And this is what I'll say. I think all heritage cultures value the community.
Yeah.
Growing up, one of my best friends, I grew up in Delaware, outside of Philly. A lot of my friends are Italian.
Yeah.
European, African, Latin American, Asian, all over the globe.
Yeah.
Our communities value moving forward and drawing from what's come before us.
Yeah.
It's only this really specific vision of American modernism that says it doesn't matter what came before. All that matters is me. And so I'll be real. I'm not anti-European.
Right.
I have friends who are Irish, Italian, German.
Sure.
And they all have this reverence for the ancestors.
Yeah.
I think we need to get back to that. I'm not only talking about Black, Latino, Asians. I'm talking about all of us.
Yeah.
We all of our cultures, the great things we've built have been based on taking what's come before us and building on top of it.
Yeah.
It's only this kind of last 100, 150 years of America that said, it's just me. Forget who came before. I'm building my own thing.
Yeah.
And so realistically, this is on Next Shark. This is an Asian American podcast, but I'm really talking to everybody. I'm not anti-European. I am anti this vision of the world that says it's only me.
Yeah.
And I'm the one who makes it. Yeah. And no one's helped me.
That's already been turned on its head, I feel like, nowadays. So it's either get on the boat or be left behind.
Yeah.
At this point, you know, especially like I said, with this whole DeepSeek thing, it's pretty obvious that
TikTok,
there is a new wave coming, and you can't stifle innovation. And the idea of walled gardens, I feel like at this point is a failing strategy. And it's like I said, it's ironic that a country that used to copy everything is now innovating and out innovating and making it open source to everyone to kind of disrupt the entire system.
You and I both came up in hip hop.
Yeah.
We came up with Black mentors who taught us you sample from the elders and you put people onto them.
Right.
Right. It's not just, I'm going to sample them and I'm going to pop off. I'm going to put out a cool single.
Yeah.
It's no, let me tell you about, Curtis Mayfield. Let me tell you about Louis Armstrong. Let me tell you about Africa Bambaataa.
Yeah.
And then let me do my version of what they did. And then we'll all get up together.
Yeah.
And that multi-generational, hey, I'm learning. Yeah, shoot. I'm learning from OpenAI version 1.0.
Yeah.
But we're making version 5.0.
Right.
And if they want to learn from that and build 6.0, that's cool.
Yeah.
But we're all getting up together instead of walling each other off and saying, oh no, innovation and competition only happens within this closed circle.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like a free economy to me. That sounds like fear.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm all up for the disruption. I'm all up for all this. But we'll end on that note. Jason, it was great to have a conversation with you.
I love this, man.
Yeah, exactly. I'll see you in a few weeks or whenever we're ready to do this again. But I'm sure there'll be new things on the dock that we need to talk about. So, Jason Chu, thank you for coming on, brother.
Hey.
Man, there we go. Sweet.